The Kelpie is a mythical creature of Scottish folklore. Every loch in Scotland has a myth of a Kelpie, a ghostly horse which would disguise itself as a beautiful woman and draw people to their watery graves. In its horse form, the Kelpie is immensely strong, and some brave people could take its bridle and harness its strength. The most famous Kelpie was the one in Loch Ness, of course, though modern cryptozoologists are more likely to imagine a prehistoric beast in the loch, rather than a mythical stallion. Still, the Kelpie is found today throughout Scotland, in statues and images, and remembered through stories and poetry. Like these lines from Walter Scott.
He watched the wheeling eddies boil, till from their foam his dazzled eyes beheld the river demon rise.
I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Keldeo. The 5th generation's main legendary Pokemon took a lot of inspiration from the Tao concepts of yin and yang. In Chinese mythology, perhaps the only creature as magical in the ways of Tao as a dragon was the Qilin, called the Kirin in Japanese myth, and often compared to the European unicorn. The Qilin could walk on water or glide over the surface on clouds, so as not to damage any living thing, even a blade of grass. It could also judge a person's morality and punish evildoers. As well as the Tao trio, the 5th generation also featured the Swords of Justice, inspired by the 3 Musketeers. The protagonist of this novel, and eventually the 4th Musketeer of the little band, is D'Artagnan, a brash and heroic young man with a feather in his cap. Combining the Chinese Qilin, the Scottish Kelpie, and D'Artagnan is Keldeo, a water and fighting type Pokemon which resembles a colourful unicorn pony with a feather in its mane. It moves like a Qilin, Pokemon White tells us. It crosses the world, running over the surfaces of oceans and rivers. It appears at scenic waterfronts. It fights like D'Artagnan. Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 says, when it is resolute, its body fills with power, and it becomes swifter. Its jumps are then too fast to follow. Its name is a combination of Kelpie and rodeo, and being found in the Crown Tundra is surely a reference to its Scottish origins. Keldeo had a starring role in the film Curem and the Sword of Justice. In this film, it took training from the other Swords of Justice, and fought Curem to prove itself. Pokemon Sword tells us, Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion taught this Pokemon how to fight. It dashes across the world, seeking more opportunities to further its training. Welcome back to Moils on Mon. Keldeo.
Your little pony friend. This is D'Artagnan also as well if you're going for the 3 Musketeers.
Yeah, the 4th Musketeer.
I don't know much about him in the game, but I do know he's a real pain in Smash Brothers when he appears and his horn becomes massive and just sweeps across the whole screen and is a real menace. So he's in my bad books for that reason. But yeah, it's a weird vibe, this Pokemon. It definitely feels like, I don't know, like really, this feels funny talking about Pokemon, but really anime, if you know what I mean. Like he feels like he's going to be like the protagonist of a shonen manga. Like he's like, you know,
he basically, for his movie appearance, is a shonen protagonist.
Right, okay, then that makes sense.
And Pokemon Shield says, They say that Keldeo must survive harsh battles and fully develop the horn on its forehead before this Pokemon's true power will awaken. And as of Black 2 and White 2, Keldeo could use that true power. Using the move Secret Sword would transform Keldeo into the more majestic-looking Resolute form. Keldeo's immense strength and good typing make it one of the most useful mythical Pokemon in battle, but as a mythical, it has never been legal in any official competitive Pokemon tournament. It has seen usage in the trading card game, as friend of the show Mikey from Pokemon Crossroads got in touch to tell us about. Lastly, we have Keldeo. Keldeo EX from Boundaries Crossed was used in almost every deck thanks to its Rush In ability. This ability allows Keldeo EX to move into the active position, though if you use a Float Stone to remove its retreat cost, then you essentially had a free retreating option. A great pivot option, and perfect to remove any unwanted poison condition. Still, Keldeo EX was no slouch, as it could also be used to attack with Secret Sword, a 3 colourless attack that does 50 base damage plus 20 more for each water energy. A Blastoise card that can make it rain energy paired nicely with it. Keldeo GX was also a great card as well. It had the Pure Heart ability that prevented effects and damage from GX Pokemon. The Sonic Edge attack was also able to cut through any defenses for 110 damage. This Pokemon and ability was perfect to pair alongside the infamous Arceus and Dialga and Palkia GX. This collaboration was short-lived, as ADP GX cast away the sword of Keldeo GX for a better sword with Sword and Shield. Thanks for that, Mikey. Keldeo is a mythical Pokemon, only available through events for the first 3 generations of its existence. This is a slight shame, as Keldeo is a perfect final entry in the roster of the 5th generation's legendary Pokemon, combining European and Asian folklore, real life, myth, and fiction in a very New York way. Original music for Luke Loves Pokemon is by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork is by Katie Groves. Funding is provided by listeners at Patreon. If you enjoy this podcast and want to check out other shows by me and my friends, head to podcastios.org. I love hearing from listeners. Get in touch about upcoming Pokemon on Twitter or Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN. Drop a comment if you're watching the video, or a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Coming up are Meloetta and Genesect, so get in touch about those or any other monsters. And even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Keldeo, and remember, I love you too.